what's being reported as the three for each team, Shane. We already did Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU. Sorry, Papaw. Arkansas. How about this one, Shane? Missouri.
Yeah.
Just turned it into a nice little series, even though the Razorbacks hate them and hate calling that a rivalry. You get Texas. That's what you're dying to get. I mean, that's a hell of a game, Texas, Arkansas. And then Ole Miss, so which, hell, annually, that's one of the more exciting, fun games. They hate Lane Kiffin. It's perfect.
Yeah. No, I think this one's going to grow on you. Clearly, you can't say you want Texas and then be afraid of Texas. So having them in the three, I think, is very important.
Yep.
Mizzou, that one kind of got force-fed to us a little bit, but like you said, it has turned into a hell of a matchup and a lot of shit talking, and that's what these games are about for me, man, is the build-up and then the talk that you can do after the game. So I hope that continues to go, and Ole Miss is always fun. So I think they did okay with the Arkansas. It's probably not the three I would have chose, but this is three I can definitely get behind, and I think a lot of Razorback fans will too.
Yep. All right, how about Auburn, Shane, again? Man, good luck. You got Alabama, of course. You got Georgia, maybe the two, without a doubt, the two best programs in recent history. So they give you a break. They're giving you Vanderbilt. That's the one we kind of suggested they should do for balance sake. And man, I'd be shaking my head if I was a Vanderbilt fan because I'm like, they gave us Auburn because they got the damn juggernaut. So you know what I mean?
This is what Saban's talking about. Why don't we get Vandy, That's what he's doing. He's looking next door. But yes, you're right. If you poll the top 25, last 25 seasons, the two best teams, Bama and Georgia, are going to be the top of those, and you're going to face them. And you're going to face them every single year. So I think that's great because they're some of our favorite rivalries, of course. And I'm okay with Vanderbilt. I think this was just like a sympathy game added here at the end.
Yeah.
They could have squeezed in a Division II, and I would have been okay. I'm like, okay, I get it. Put Tulane back in the SEC and let Auburn play. That's their third game. So,
all right, how about Florida, Shane? Got to give them Georgia. We knew that was going to be the case. South Carolina, I kind of assumed that would be a natural.
Before we go, I know Tulane's not Division II, so I just wanted to pause the angry typing. I probably should have went with Sewanee or something, But
Georgia, South Carolina, and then here's the wild card. This is the one we threw out there. Kind of heard rumblings this was going to be the case. Pretty weird, but Florida versus Oklahoma, which major gap in proximity, of course, but we're talking two of the proud programs in college football history. This is, the Florida LSU game was one where that was kind of a forced rivalry, but it became a great one. I think this Florida-Oklahoma, even though there is some history. They played, I believe, in a BCS national championship game. Mm-hmm. They played in a recent bowl game. I could see that growing into a nice little rivalry.
Yeah, this one is tough. Kind of has the makings of that A&M South Carolina you were talking about earlier. Proximity is definitely not the thing they were looking at here, but it does tie in some of that recruiting to the state of Florida. I think if you're looking at SEC as a whole, you want to bring some of that west out east, and I think that, you can make an argument this is good for them and good for that brand. I think this is as powerful as Oklahoma is. I think this strengthens their viewership online. So I can get behind it. Obviously, the first few years it's going to be weird, but if you think both these teams running, if they're at the top of their game, man, we could have some epic showdowns between those two guys, and so I'm all for it.
Yeah. So Georgia, of course, they get
I'm sorry, and the rest of it, I think that was a no-brainer for me. Yeah. Sorry.
Georgia gets Florida, of course. They get Auburn. We already said that. Now here's the wild card. This one makes no sense to me at all.
No.
Kentucky. Those have been some pretty. I don't know if competitive is the right word because Georgia wins every damn one of them. But Kentucky has, they're physical. They match a lot of them physical wise, and they've been giving them Georgia some fits. But they could never play that game ever, and I wouldn't miss it. You know what I mean? So playing that one annually just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
No, and I think they really shit the bed here with Kentucky's too, which is going to be your next one that you talk about. I don't quite understand. Clearly, there are some Kentucky rivalries. We talked about the South Carolina one. That one has become fun and entertaining. Those guys hate each other. But Tennessee, man, the Tennessee Vols should be there. But I'm sorry, I don't want to take away from Georgia. It seems like why is Kentucky and South Carolina not flipped here? It makes sense. They're right next to each other. There's been some good games between them. I don't think either program would be mad if they had to do it. It kind of surprises me they went that route when they could have easily have chosen South Carolina. So I don't know. I don't, like you said, these things aren't completely solid and etched in stone. If they could tweak anything, I think it's Kentucky's 3. I would definitely look a little harder at. Yeah. But like you said, Kentucky and Georgia, they've had some really good games here the last few seasons. It's just not, it's one-sided.
Right. So let's get to Kentucky since that's all you want to talk about here. Kentucky gets Mississippi State, which you've been playing annually, so that makes some sense. And that's a competitive series, so I think Kentucky will be okay with it. But South Carolina, I mean, that game's fun because Stoops made fun of the damn glasses, and that was a fun game last year. I'll give you that. But again, Georgia makes no sense, and you said it perfectly. I'm just going to repeat what you said. Just flip-flop that. I mean, give Kentucky, Tennessee. That's a game I believe they played 114 times, played every year for 100-something years, and why Georgia is not playing South Carolina instead of Kentucky. I mean, we're basically talking about two programs that are, when they talked about those upper tier and those bottom tier, South Carolina and Kentucky, while they're very close to the top tier, I think they're bottom tier, at least based on the last 10 years. So it would make complete sense just to switch those out, and you're not messing with the proximity, or you're not messing with parity of the league and everything. That one makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like South Carolina as a Tennessee fan. I don't. But I don't hate them, I hate Kentucky. I hate Kentucky. I hate Florida. That's just rivalries I grew up to. It just means a little bit more for me. And it's a simple switch, and I think all parties are in better mood. So I don't know the angle there. I want to give a shout out. Buddy of mine, we do the bourbon bet every single year, and that's going to go away if this is true. We'll have to do it every other year. So maybe they had something. Maybe Ollie sent in a letter, saying I can't afford this bourbon every year, so maybe we could do it every other year. I don't know if that was the case, but I didn't give Todd the respect. He sent me down some wonderful Maker's Mark here, and Kentucky straight bourbon, and he even wrote on there, like had it printed on there, Cousin Shane, go Cats. This is a bet that we have every year. If Tennessee wins, I'll get a bottle of that Kentucky bourbon, and if Kentucky wins, which is rare, I'll send them some of that fine Tennessee whiskey. So it's just a wonderful bet, but that's it, man. When I think of Kentucky, when I think of rivalry, somebody asks me, what's Kentucky's rivalry? I always think Tennessee. It's not just, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's any type of sport. We're going to compete with each other. So I think they really missed the boat here with that one, and it kind of hurts my feelings because it's one of my favorite games, man. The build up to it and everything. But again, Todd, Ollie, those boys, I got one more sitting out there. So Roush, I'll see you at media days. You better have mine. But I just want to give those boys a shout out, and I'll get a picture of these bottles if you're watching online on our YouTube channel. I'll show you. These boys they put a little extra zing on their bottle. So at least while I'm drinking it, I got to think of Kentucky.
So we already hit on LSU, Shane, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama. A lot of that makes sense. No complaints there from me. So for Ole Miss, of course, we had to keep Mississippi State. Got to keep the Egg Bowl intact. Yeah. LSU, we've already talked about, and Arkansas, we've already talked about. So if I'm an Ole Miss fan, Shane, I think I'm pretty fired up with this trio that we got.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss made out like a bandit, to be honest with you. If I'm just looking at scheduling alone, I think that the proximity is important. This is a couple rivalries you got to have, obviously, with Mississippi State, but that Arkansas one, I could be fed that, and they hate LSU, and that game's turned out to be pretty damn good. So, yeah, I think they hit a home run here.
So for Mississippi State, of course, flipping the Egg Bowl, they get Ole Miss, of course. You couldn't take that one away. Kentucky, we talked about. They've been playing them for years, so it makes some sense. And then Texas A&M, which they actually have a winning record over A&M since they joined the SEC. So if I'm a Mississippi State fan, I think I'm pretty fired up about it. And the number one thing we heard, Shane, when we put out our list, don't give us Alabama. What the hell? Who cares about proximity? You know, they've beaten us 20 years in a row, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We do not want Alabama. So if I'm a Mississippi State fan, I'm fired up with this one.
Absolutely. And we will still be reminded every other year how close Mississippi State and Alabama are. But yeah, I think if I'm State fan, I'm looking at this. Ole Miss, clearly. UK, I like it. Texas A&M, we've had your number here for the next few years. So I think we're in good shape here, and Mississippi State fans, I think they'll be happy. Another
one I think has got to be happy here, Shane, Missouri. You get Arkansas, who you've owned, and they won't call it a rivalry because you're beating them every year. Vanderbilt, that's another. I mean, everybody that gets Vanderbilt, they feel like they hit the lotto in this thing. And
Poor
Oklahoma, which is they played over 90 times, I believe, given their history in the Big 12 and all that. So I think if you're a Missouri fan, you're pretty fired up about your trio you got.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Oklahoma with the Texas, I think this is a good fit. We've said that word too many damn times, proximity. I feel like it's 007 with them proximity mines. You remember that game back in the day, throwing around everywhere? I don't think I've used the word since then, but this is a good fit. Mizzou, I think Eli's happy, tickled pink. You got Vandy. You've got an Oklahoma that's down. I think more like up front too. Arkansas still trying to work some kinks out. They're not humming like they want to be. Oklahoma's coming in off a bad season. You got Vanderbilt. So here we talked about on a earlier show that Mizzou's got to crank up real quick because the schedule gets tougher. Yes, they're gonna have more SEC games, but they got 3 teams right now that aren't playing their best football. Now they could be. And I'd hate to see Oklahoma and Arkansas, if they're on the top, then Mizzou fans may look at this a little bit different. But time being, I think you got a good schedule coming up.
So for Oklahoma, then Shane, of course, you got to keep that Texas game. We already said we're getting Missouri, and then you're getting that. This is the weirdest one on the map, Florida. But again, there's reasons to like that. If I'm an OU fan, I think I'm okay with this 3.
Yeah, I think you are too, and you didn't gain Texas A&M. A lot of people were wondering if that was going to be one that you had. They didn't force feed you some old rivalries, so right. I like this Texas keeping that one. Mizzou, we've talked about, and the Florida, that one again, it's going to take some growing, getting used to, but I think that's one that will grow on us. The more they play.
The only critique I would potentially have, Shane, maybe you drop Florida and you switch in like Arkansas, which I believe is fairly close to Oklahoma. I think could be the closest campus to Oklahoma, but I think that would make Oklahoma fans happy. But there's just so many pieces to this puzzle. I think that's why we get this oddity,
Yeah, and it kind of surprised me that neither one of the Mississippi schools pulled them either. If you're thinking close to home, that would have made sense to me. But it's like you said, you're playing a game and you're trying to fit all these pieces. There's not a perfect schedule, and but they're pretty damn close in my opinion.
Yeah, for South Carolina, Shane, Kentucky again, that's kind of weird, but they've been playing annually for a while.
Yeah,
Florida makes all the sense in the world. But you already hit on it, Tennessee. I mean, I'll tell you what, Tennessee, South Carolina fans, that's the number one battle in the offseason in my mention. So maybe this is a much more heated rivalry than we're making it out to be. But again, I think you drop Tennessee, you switch it out for Georgia, Of course, I don't know if South Carolina fans want. I don't know if anybody wants Georgia right now. So maybe you're happy with this, but I think Georgia makes a hell of a lot more sense. That's. I feel like, obviously Clemson's their biggest rival, but I thought Georgia was their number 2 rival in the SEC. I would switch Tennessee for Georgia. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, old Frank Beamer may have something to do with this one, just pulling some of them old skeletons out of the closet. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you love this. You absolutely love it. You're not scared of any team on that. So you're not getting a Georgia. That's the bad thing, because sometimes, how many times have we been doing the best case scenario and then we run up to a Georgia team or an Alabama team? We're like, well, that's a loss. I don't think you can just pencil that in. Now, obviously, Tennessee fans, they can't stand South Carolina, so that's a rivalry that will be picking up steam, especially the last 2 years, the way we've been playing and recruiting and talking, just shit talking all the time. So that makes for good football. So it will. This is one of those that maybe 5 years from now, we're not even looking back. We're like, oh yeah, it's Tennessee, South Carolina. So, but for the time being, I think South Carolina made out like a bandit here.
Right. And I would say this too, Shane, if I'm a South Carolina fan, obviously Shane Beamer's only been down there 2 years. He's beaten every team in that list. So maybe I do look at it and say, sign me up, man, because we're only getting better. You know what?
Yeah, that's right.
So for Tennessee, obviously we already talked about it. Alabama, that makes all the sense in the world. Vanderbilt, in-state, you kind of had to keep that one going. But again, South Carolina. So I've seen the reaction here, Shane. Many Tennessee fans would rather play Kentucky over South Carolina, but also I've seen, I've not seen many Tennessee fans disappointed in this. They're ready to sign up for this 3. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm good with it. I mean, we could take Alabama out if you wanted to. I'm not just kidding. Just kidding. I know we got to have that game, and it was fantastic. Because when you do win, Mike, it made it that much more. I mean, we had so much fun. I obviously the season didn't go like we wanted to as Tennessee fans, but damn, that night, irreplaceable. It was the feeling that we had. It was surreal. So Vandy, absolutely, we love that one. Alabama will take. South Carolina, we would love to switch with Kentucky, but I've also heard some that wish we had Florida because, growing up in the 90s, that's what it was Tennessee and Florida. But, again, these are teams that you're still going to play every other year. So there'll be a year you don't play Florida, but you pick them up the following season. So you're going to get a full dose of SEC scheduling.
So for Texas, Shane, Oklahoma, of course, Texas A&M, love to see that just printed anywhere that they're going to play each other. And then obviously Arkansas we hit on. So, hey, not an easy road by any means for Texas. They're loading up the Longhorns with the tough schedule here. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to talk great historic rivalries and games, you're getting it with this trio.
Yes, welcome to the SEC, Mike. It was almost like this was done for them. Like this is coming over. We know we got to keep the Oklahoma game. We want to see the Texas A&M game. And who else can we pick? Oh, yeah, the other team that's hated you forever, so Arkansas. So, this is old blood, but it will be bad blood, and I can't wait to see all 3 of these meet every year.
Yeah, so I think A&M really made out here too, Shane, because they're growing rivalry with LSU, obviously the Texas game, and Mississippi State, which is, again, you have a losing record against them, so I'm not chalking that up as an easy one by any means because it's proven otherwise, but I think I'm pretty fired up if I'm a A&M fan with this 3-0.
I think you are too, Mike. This one is a good setup for the Aggies and kind of what we were thinking. The Mississippi one, that one kind of threw us off a little, but I can be convinced that it could be a good rivalry. And like you said, it's not a team they've just beat. They've actually, like you said, lost more. So I think this one is going to be fantastic. And but man, I think they made out. The more I look at that, I think they did good. This is going to be so fun. I'm looking at these games, man. I'm like, Texas A&M and Texas, LSU. Get them back to back. It's going to be awesome, brother.
Well, talking about making out, Shane, final one here, Vanderbilt. I think honestly, everybody wanting Vanderbilt. That's kind of the running joke. But they get Tennessee, Missouri, and Auburn.
Yeah.
And say what you want, Tennessee on the rise. We all know that program's always a scandal away from falling apart here. I mean, I think Vanderbilt, not that they're going to beat all these teams annually or anything, but you can make the case. I mean, Auburn, too, is always inconsistent, it seems like. Missouri is not world beaters. So if I'm a Vanderbilt fan, I'm pretty fired up about this one.
Well, even going like into last season, when we were looking at it, if these three would have been on your schedule, you could easily convince me that they'll win one of them,
Right.
and sometimes that one is the one you least expect, and sometimes you're losing your job. That's the power of losing to Vanderbilt is like, shit, you can't beat these guys within, So, I mean, think about it. I still see videos of the Florida upset. They were single filing, walking down to the field with a $250,000 fine. It was the slowest crowd reaction ever, but it was still a monumental win for Vanderbilt, the Kentucky game. So I think these three teams, obviously if you're picking best case scenario, they're going to probably lose to all three of them. But you can't rule out the fact that these guys can step up any season and be closer to these three than other programs in the SEC.
Yeah, and we get to drop Georgia, which is what everybody in the East wants to do right now. You know what?
Absolutely. I'm glad I got rid of Georgia too. I mean,
Well, buddy, hey, that's all I got on this episode of the show. Hopefully, I can just imagine them changing this thing in a week, and then we got to talk about it all again. But this is the biggest topic in the SEC. It's going to be finalized very, very soon. I can't get enough of it. But you got anything before we hop off the line?
No. Sometimes I drift because I do think about the games we're going to get to see, and you're talking 9 SEC opponents. It's fantastic, Mike. We're talking some great games, and they're still going to have some powerhouses that they're going against. We're going to have multi-loss teams, but it doesn't matter because every weekend we're going to see a hell of a show. So, yeah, I love it. I can't wait to talk more about it, Mike. And, like you said, the schedules may change tomorrow. At least put the Kentucky one back on, man. I'm still heartbroken on that one, but other than that, I'm pumped up, man.
And what's funny about it too, Shane, is just that, we're just talking 3 of 9. So you may be happy with your 3. You may be disappointed with your 3. But then you got to turn around and say, oh, you know who else is on the schedule? Oklahoma, Georgia, LSU, A&M, Tennessee. It's like, oh, my God, this is a murderer's row coming up here.